Ladies and gentlemen, it is Stevo Speaks. It's the odd couple back with my boy Kevo. We back in the active, and hey, we about to talk about some Celtics, but after the music first.
Welcome to the number one place for your daily basketball news and analysis, NBA Central.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. As y'all just saying, that is NBA Essential. Make sure y'all follow, subscribe, like, comment, put that notification bell, subscribe to all the NBA Essential, all us. You can find us in the description below. But yeah, man, we came to talk about some Celtics and some trouble in paradise didn't happen over there. So as y'all know, that some moves have been moved over there. They done lost Marcus Smart. He's over there in Memphis, which is a good thing for them, probably a bad thing over there. And one move not too many people is talking about, but which is understandable because it was one of the last moves of the free agency, which is Grant Williams going to the Mavericks, I believe. Yes, he went to the Mavericks. And that's two of their dogs when it comes to defense. I want to say leadership. I kind of hesitated, but I feel like Grant was a leader in some respects. So I don't know if you heard he was on the JJ Redick podcast, and he said towards the end of the season, well, not towards the end of the season, but mainly towards the end of their playoff stint this year, he felt like it was a lack of chemistry there. They lost a lot of chemistry, and it was pretty evident, but it was the way he described it and broke it down. But did you first hear about that?
I heard about it, but I didn't watch the interview. I've been super busy these last couple of
Yeah.
days. But when I heard when you told me about it specifically, it was like, okay, well, that kind of makes sense. It just seemed like the team that went to the finals last year versus the team that went to the Eastern Conference Finals this year, it's like two different squads. Like that je ne sais
Mm-hmm.
quoi, that confidence, it didn't happen the way that you thought it would. Kind of like you remember when Milwaukee lost and then they won a championship the next year. I
Mm-hmm.
think they lost in the Eastern Conference Finals, I believe, to the Miami Heat, and then they won the
Yep.
championship the very next year. So it felt like Boston had everything that it took. Like if you look at their record going into the playoffs, they were one game behind the Milwaukee Bucks, 57-25 for the season, 32-9 at the crib. They finished the last 10 games 8-2. They won a three game lead winning streak to go into the playoffs. And then they got to the playoffs and it was just like shaky pretty much the whole time. Like even in the first round, it was a couple of
Mm-hmm.
games that they lost to the Atlanta Hawks, or they lost one or two to the I think they lost two to the Atlanta Hawks. And then they went to the second round and it was a little struggle right there. And then they went to the Eastern Conference Finals and lost to the Miami Heat. Now, mind you, it was a closer series than the final. What was it? Game six or game seven? Was it 7 games?
I want to say it was 7. I think it
Yeah.
was
So
6
either
though.
way, though,
It might have been 6.
Either way, either
Yeah.
way, they were the favorites. Like they were
Mm-hmm.
expected to beat the Miami Heat, and they didn't do it. And you can tell, like Jalen Brown wasn't all the way there. You could tell Jason Tatum struggled throughout the playoffs, not just in that series versus the Miami Heat, but even in the Philadelphia series, with the exception of like that Game 6 situation where they just took over, where Jason Tatum took over down the stretch. But prior to that, he was having the worst game of his professional basketball career. You could just see
Mm-hmm.
like they were in their heads, and it was almost like that pressure of getting back to the finals was just too much for them.
Yeah, and I think what was the good thing about, like, why I want you to go back and watch is because how he broke down what really was the issue. Well, not necessarily the issue, but what was the difference. And he said it was a noticeable difference. Because like you said, we all know the coach changed, and we know the whole situation happened. Ime Udoka, and one of the first things JJ asked him was like, was there a different type of pressure that everybody noticed because that it was more on Mazzulla compared to Ime because they was both in high pressure situations, and he said it was pretty much the same, but it was a little bit more felt on Joe Mazzulla's part because, like you said, we just went to the finals, and it was a change of philosophy there because as we know, and as it was shown, if you watch the games, you can see it. The philosophy of Joe Mazzulla was more offensive oriented and getting more shots. He said the way Joe Mazzulla thinks is, hey, we gonna beat them by throwing up shots. If we get up 20 shots, majority might, and that's a good chance a majority of that's gonna go in, and we're not gonna be playing from behind. Versus Missoula was like, yeah, we get them behind, but we gonna play some defense, and that's gonna get us back into the game. And that was really the main difference is. And if you look at the construction of the roster, the team was more made for a team of Ime Udoka. Yeah, Joe Mazzulla's had a nice, like, when we was watching some of the games and we was commenting on some of the games, I was like, man, they think they the Warriors. They think they the East Coast Warriors because they just jacking up shots. And lo and behold, that was one of Mazzulla's mindsets. Let's get up shots, which they did because one of the main things we both been saying was they was jacking. They was definitely jacking. And Ime was not that type of player. And when you have a team with old man Al Horford, as you always call Grant Williams, and people like what we just said going on to Memphis and Marcus Smart, they can hit timely shots. They can make shots. But the defense is where they speak and what drives the team. And when that philosophy switch, I think that was to the detriment of that team.
Yeah, especially for a player like former defensive player of the year, Marcus Smart. He want to get out there and be a dog and allow that mentality to be infectious to the rest of the squad.
Hmm.
And that's when a year ago when they went to the finals, when he called everybody out like, "Hey, you supposed
Hmm.
to be the man. You supposed to be the man. This is how it's supposed to go." That led to their best season in terms of because they've been to a few Eastern Conference Finals, but
Hmm.
the writing was on the wall, right? If Missoula, there was a coaching philosophy change, and Missoula definitely is about shooting 53s a game, and the roster was definitely not constructed toward that, which is why they went and got a Porzingis who can hit the open three, right? But at the end of the day, this past season is what we're talking about in terms of their chemistry. Absolutely. I think not enough was made throughout the playoffs. And I know it was probably like taboo to bring up Ime Udoka's name because of
Hmm.
all of the controversy that surrounded. But if it was like a regular situation, like, Ime Udoka was in the hospital or he got
Hmm.
fired or he decided to go to a different team, then I believe that the pundits would have mentioned it a lot throughout the playoffs. Like, hey, this was Ime Udoka's team, and now things are different. This team was built around Ime Udoka's philosophy, and now it's
Hmm.
different. People didn't talk about it because of how touchy feely the circumstances were, but you're absolutely right. That's exactly why they struggled throughout the playoffs, and that's exactly why they struggled throughout the season. At points is because of the coaching change and the coaching philosophy. And honestly, even in the playoffs, the national buzz was like, "Hey, Missoula, like, are you gonna make adjustments? Is this what gonna, how you gonna be able to adjust properly?" And he was kind of getting salty about that, in
Hmm.
the interviews and the post game press conferences and so on and so forth. And eventually, they fizzled out. They didn't have what it took because defense, like in the playoffs, defense has to be somewhat of a focus. It don't have to be the main focus in today's NBA, but it has to be somewhat of a focus. When you
Right.
look at the Golden State Warrior squads that was winning championships, those guys was top 10 offensively and defensively. When you look at the Lakers that was winning championships, same things. When you look at the Spurs, same thing. When you look at those Miami Heat teams, same thing. You can't just completely ignore the defensive end of of basketball in favor of just offense, offense, offense. And unfortunately, that's what bit the Boston Celtics in the ass.
Yeah. And I don't want to completely dump on them because they didn't. It wasn't a huge drop off. I mean, and when they was in the finals, they was number one in offense and defense. But this year they was second in offense and defense. So it wasn't a huge drop off. But it shows you when you have the mindset in them crunch time situations where it's different because, and like you said, in the playoffs, and then when it's breaking down. That offense is gonna go before the defense will go because the philosophy is different. Yeah, they could play defense because it been ingrained in them from a year priors, so it's not gonna completely go. But some of the adjustments on the defense, that's what our people talking about, like how quick Ime was on adjustments. He also touched on what's the word he used, trust. He used trust. He said Ime was the type of person where he'll throw out something or he'll listen to one of the players throw out something and he'll ask why. And if he hear it was justified, he'd be like, I trust you to do such. Or even on the fly, I trust you to do such. He kind of leaned towards that Joe wasn't like that to a certain degree, maybe with certain people. Like I'm pretty sure he didn't have no issues with like Jason Tatum or Jalen Brown because they're offensive threat regardless. So I think he did. But when it comes to certain people, like one things I always ask during that third round was like, why is Grant not playing? Why Time Lord not playing that much? It just the answers is just right there. So yeah, that's really what it was. But you can't sit here and say that you didn't see it. But now that we hear what we thought, it just make more sense now.
I mean, because it wasn't just Grant Williams; it was Peyton Pritchard too,
Peyton
right?
Pritchard as
And,
well.
and honestly,
Shout
like
out to that Oregon boy.
when you think about the Boston Celtics as a whole, right? They went from Brad Stevens 2 years ago, or I guess 3 years ago now at
Yeah.
this point, 3 seasons ago, and then they was at Ime Udoka 2 seasons ago, and then Mazzulla a season ago, and now they're going first situation where it's back to back seasons with the same coach since Brad Stevens a few seasons ago. So it's like you can't ignore all of the change in personnel and personality that has occurred in the last 3 to 4 seasons for the Boston Celtics, and all of that plays a role. Honestly, Marcus Smart was supposed to go down as a Celtic great. He was supposed to
Mm-hmm.
be he was supposed to be there to the end, at least until he played 10 years there or something so he can etch his name in Celtic lore. But
Yeah.
but the fact that there's a coaching philosophy change that's more geared toward offense and putting up shots versus defense, there you have it. That's why Marcus Smart, because honestly, he's not the scapegoat. It ain't like it was his fault. He was out there balling. Honestly, he was out there playing defense. It was a stretch where he was hitting shots when nobody else was throughout the playoffs. And pardon the dogs upstairs. I don't know what they up there barking about, but pardon
Yeah, my fault. Pardon me from looking down. I just found out Justin Liberty is going to the Toronto Raptors, so I'm a little mad. So
them. You talking about Javon Liberty?
yes,
Freeman Liberty?
yep, we
To
just
the
got picked.
Raptors?
Yep, just got picked up 2-way contract.
And you know why? Because the Bulls decided to go ahead and stay with Io.
I love you, Ayo, but god damn it.
It wasn't just Io, it was the young man from Turkey that they signed
Yeah,
to.
true, true.
I
But yeah,
mean,
I
we
don't want
got
to make this a Bulls thing. That's another
nah,
story
we
for
got
another time.
7,000 guards, man. So Freeman Liberty, you go do your thing, my guy. And I hope you keep
No, bro.
balling out for real.
I'm excited to see it. But yeah, man, like we said, it's a lot of motion in the East as y'all see. So like we said, I just I got a video coming. It just came to my head as I'm making this video. So y'all stay tuned. It's got something to do with really much teams moving around a lot and then paying attention to the teams that don't do that much moving and see what happens. And yeah,
Mhm.
that's what we're gonna talk about. But that's it for this episode. It's the Odd Couple. It's Stev0 Speaks. My big boy, Big Kev. Make sure y'all follow him on White Sox and Cubs channel. He been killing over there. Just got to 500K. I mean 500. 500K. We trying to get him to 1,000. Make sure y'all subscribe and comment and tune into the live stream. Follow the whole Citrus family. And yeah.
Welcome to the number one place for your daily basketball news and analysis, NBA Central.